Good morning, everyone. No need to unmute yourselves just yet, but as long as you can hear us and you can see us, then
Mhm.
then we're on to a winner. So I'm just letting a few more people come in.
Jeff, as well, while you're
Hmm.
letting everyone in, can you see the screen saying Focus Green in the top left-hand corner, partnering for energy savings and compliance?
Yes,
Yeah, brilliant.
it's,
Okay,
it's all
fine.
there.
Hopefully everyone else can.
It's all there. All right, we've got
Just let me know
okay.
when you want me to start.
I will. I will. Yeah. So I'm just waiting in a few more coming in. Joe, do you mind just keeping an eye on the attendees? Yeah, cool. Thanks. Right then, ladies and gents, welcome to this webinar. It's the first one of 2025, so a very belated Happy New Year. But we are here today just to kind of get a bit of an idea from one of our additional service partners who are Focus Green, and I'll be passing that over to them very shortly. Just for the format of this session, it will last an hour. And I'm sure some of you, well, many of you will have questions along the way. If you can hold those questions off until we have a little Q&A towards the end, that would be great. But there is a chat box open if there is something that's really burning that you specifically want answered there and then. But just bear in mind, I'm just conscious we've got a lot of stuff to get through today. And I want to try and keep the questions to a minimum until we actually get to that point. So let me introduce you, pass you over to Focus Green. So Focus Green, we've been working with these guys for, what was it, about a year now, probably a year and a half now, Matt, I think.
Probably a couple of years, in all
Probably years, yeah.
fairness. I think the original webinar, Jeff, when Mark was kind of looking after us to a certain extent, was probably done a couple of years ago.
Okay,
So
so yeah.
similar sort of feel. We had to obviously go through the services that we offer, but it
Yep.
wasn't as sort of poignant to your resellers and account managers for the questions that they were getting from their current
Yep.
client base and potential clients. So today, I won't go over it too quickly, but ultimately, we'll try and cover as much as we can in the next sort of 45 minutes
Okay.
on what the services that we offer look like to your clients and resellers.
Okay.
And we'll try and simplify it as much as we can as we go
So
forward.
let me just set this up so the chap you've been hearing there is Matt Dillon. Matt Dillon runs Focus Green. So Matt, I'm going to give you the floor.
Brilliant. Hi, everyone. Hope everyone can see the screen in full. So, what we'll do today is we're going to present what Focus Green offer, the services that are applicable, and potentially the biggest thing here is obviously helping your clients and easing you guys in to asking the right questions and looking at the right technologies and services that ultimately will help keep your clients sticky moving forward. So we've been partnering with Full Power for quite a while now, a couple of years, and mainly based around additional energy savings and compliance, as you can see on screen. As I run through this, just remember you've got the website in the bottom left-hand corner, and ultimately, if there's any additional information that you need, the Q&As at the end, and of course you can go on our website. There's a lot of blogs, there's a lot of resources on there in reference to the elements that I'm going to run through today. Okay, so my name's Matt. I know I've probably met a number of you anyway at the different road shows, the gala events, spoken to you, had teams meetings, etc. And the main aim realistically for Focus Green is for us to help build and achieve energy efficiency through all of your different avenues and sustainability goals for your clients. And we're a leading provider of energy compliance and efficiency solutions, and we are fully dedicated to helping businesses not just reduce their kilowatt usage and reduce their carbon footprint, but by default, of course, that means that they will save money and they'll be happier with you guys because they're saving money and you're giving them the supply contracts that they need, I'm sure. And we'll unlock as many saving opportunities to drive that long-term aspiration of the client and clients moving forward into net zero carbon. So, in terms of our mission, we empower businesses with innovative energy solutions that simplify compliance and enhance operational efficiency and contribute to a greener future. And of course, we have our focus. Our main focus and our main goal is to make energy compliance effortless ensuring businesses meet their legal obligations while improving their bottom line, which of course is still massively important over the fact that net zero carbon should be the first thing they're thinking about. So the first thing I'm going to start with today is ESOS, which is Energy Saving Opportunity Scheme. Now, I've spoken to quite a number of you about this. This is probably second in line behind solar inquiries at the moment and solar export that we get, and it's for larger clients. So if you put your mindset into what larger clients have I got, it doesn't matter what they do in terms of industry, but they need to have a UK entity and need to pay their corporation tax. And businesses if they meet the qualification criteria, they must complete energy audits every 4 years to remain compliant, because ultimately non-compliance can lead to both significant fines and of course a black mark against their name in the public domain. So ESOS, how can Focus Green help? So looking at the left-hand side of the screen, you've got what the organisations need to meet in terms of the criteria. So employ over 250 people or more, have an annual turnover exceeding 44 million, or a balance sheet of 38 million. So if they reach one of those, they do need to complete an ESOS every 4 years. So how can we help? We conduct in-depth energy audits to identify inefficiencies. We'll prepare fully the compliant ESOS report that needs to be ready for submission. So we hold the client's hand throughout the whole of the process, and we offer tailored recommendations to help businesses cut costs. And we manage the entire process. Ultimately, you can be as involved as you want. There's methodology meetings, and of course, there's strategy meetings after the ESOSs. So you can kind of build an idea yourselves as to what that looks like, and arguably sell some of that requirement. So just going off piece slightly from the presentation, then if you've got a lead for an ESOS and they hit this criteria and they want to look at it, then you can just send us through Full Power the inquiry, and we'll deal with it. We can bring you in as much or as little as you want, and we'll send you updates. Or, as some of you have done, is you want to be involved throughout the whole process, which I think is brilliant, because ultimately it lends a hand to you making that client more sticky, and it's more effective for you to do that. But it's entirely up to you, of course. So why partner with Focus Green for ESOSs? They're guaranteed demand. It's a UK-driven compliance, so it has to be done. It's a legal requirement, meaning simply that businesses must comply, making it a much easier recurring sale. So once they're with us through you, we hope that they continue and have all of their ESOS work done. We're in ESOS 3 at the moment, so it started in 2014. They're high value opportunities. So of course, there's more commission to be earned because they're high value, they're bigger clients, they demand more work to be done, which carries a larger fee, of course. And it's a full done for you service. We handle the entire process. So like I said a moment ago, if you don't want to get involved, send the lead through Full Power. We'll quote, obviously, via the pricing matrix. Any commission questions, of course, ask the hierarchy at Full Power in reference to what that means to you at the bottom line. But you don't have to get involved. And ultimately, as a trusted compliance expert, we build that trust with your client and minimize hassle as we move forward. The support and training aspects will come up a little bit on each slide, because obviously it's slightly different for each compliance. But in terms of support and training, we'll not only support your client and train their thought process for net zero carbon for compliance, but also we can support and train each reseller and each account manager. Okay, so we'll move on to another compliance, which is streamlined energy and carbon reporting, or commonly known as SECR. So again, it's a UK regulation that requires qualifying companies to report their energy use, carbon emissions, and efficiency measures. And it's a financial connection. So they need to do this every year. And again, they can, if they're not deemed as compliant, be penalised financially, and also within the public domain, they'll have a black mark against their name. The criteria for SECR is very, very similar to ESOS, as you can see again on the left-hand side. But if they hit 2 or more of those targets, so 250 or more employees, turnover of 36 million, balance sheet of 18 million or more. They're slightly different, but very, very close. The biggest difference here is we're talking more carbon and environmental rather than building and transport and process. And of course, it's a yearly duty for the companies or businesses rather that hit those targets. So once again, how Focus Green helps. We'll calculate energy use and carbon emissions. So our team would data gather and provide the businesses with a clear understanding of their energy consumption for all of their entities and what their carbon footprint is. And we fully prepare the compliant SECR report for annual filings that goes with their accounts, as mentioned. So it's not the same time of year for everyone because it depends on when their financial year is. It could follow the fiscal year, it could follow the anniversary of when they started the company, etc. We provide expert recommendations to reduce costs and emissions, and we simplify the whole entire SECR process. And once again, if a company hits ESOS, they normally hit SECR. Not as much, we don't have to charge as much to complete an SECR, so there's less GP, meaning less profit, meaning less profit share for the resellers. So why partner with us for this particular compliance? Again, similar to ESOS, regulatory requirement. Businesses must comply, meaning they've got to do it. There's no get out clause. It's a growing market because everyone's looking more at carbon these days anyway. And a very, very easy resell opportunity, probably even easier than ESOS, just simply because it's every year. And again, once they're with us through you, we hope, then there's no contract to sign, essentially, but our clients normally stay with us, touch wood, throughout the whole SECR process. The only time we ever have anyone leave for an SECR is if they've changed their CEO or their CFO or their financial team, or left the country in terms of their business. So, yeah, and we offer, again, dedicated partner support. Once again, you can be as close-knit to the whole process as you want or not and leave our team up to it, okay? So in terms of the two main compliances, that's ESOS and SECR, building energy assessments are a main portion of what an ESOS is because it's mainly building driven and then we look at their facilities. However, outside of compliance, your clients can simply just have a building energy assessment. And this is what the main reason that we as Focus Green came in to partner with Full Power Utilities at the very beginning, because you had guys and clients that wanted to look at their energy performance of their commercial property and identify those improvements. And from an impartial point of view, that's what the assessment did to help lower costs, or does, sorry, to help lower costs and enhance efficiency. And there's 3 or 4 different types for building energy assessment, but to keep things simple, we go in, we data capture, and we produce a report based on their building or buildings to show them what their priority listed order is for solutions that are viable for that site and that company. Okay, so how can Focus Green help? We conduct an in-depth energy performance assessment on that building that will cover everything. Experts analyze energy usage, insulation, i.e. the fabric of the building, HVAC, which is your heating, ventilation and cooling efficiency, lighting to pinpoint areas where businesses can cut consumption and lower costs. So ultimately, again, making the client sticky. We identify key areas for energy efficiency improvements by evaluating the building. We provide actionable insights that help business reduce waste and optimize performance. We ensure full compliance with building energy assessments and regulations. So they may need a building energy assessment for various reasons, just because they want to know how energy efficient they are or not and what solutions. But there are other reasons. Number one is they may be looking for funding. So a lot of the funders actually ask for a building energy assessment before they look at funding. And of course, if they're having anything done to the building, they may want to sort of emphasize what needs to be done before any improvements happen. And of course, similar to everything else that we do with you guys and external internal account managers, we offer a tailored solution to enhance energy efficiency to your client. And once again, you can be as proactive within that process or not. And there's some high-end commissions. A building energy assessment would probably go from a very small building at £900 to large entities. We're talking sort of £10,000–15,000, all right, for an individual building energy assessment. So why partner? Again, there's high demand, a massive approach towards energy efficiencies. I'm sure you're all aware. Regulatory compliance, not as much, but they do have to hit certain standards like BSEN, CIBSE standard reports, which again, I'm not going to go through now. Easy to sell. You may, this is the biggest seller with you guys and your full account management team, externally, internally, is people suggesting to you, even if you're not consciously asking them any questions about it, is they're asking you guys, do you know anyone who does building energy assessments? This has been the biggest winner, and what we've paid out in commissions is relevant to this section, probably more than the others. And long-term impact, because they last for 3, 4, maybe 5 years unless they have any work done, so they can use them towards funding, and they're valid for 3, 4, or 5 years. And then comprehensive partner support for you as partners, and of course, moving forward in strategy for your client. To move on to just remember, I know I'm going through this very, very quickly because obviously we've got a lot to cover. Definitely go on our website, go and have a look at our blogs. It's going to be recorded, also it'll be on Full Powers Resource Centre, and I'm presuming on your LinkedIn and emailed over to everyone. Going to move on now to the smaller but still, compliances that need to be done. So energy performance certificates, you've probably all seen one. Rating from A to G. With energy performance certificates, they're not data driven. They're all done by calculations based on based on a visit to the site. And again, you need to have a valid EPC when renting, selling, or constructing a commercial property. And obviously, they help organisations understand their energy use and identify ways of improvement. How Focus Green can help. So we generate EPCs for commercial properties. We don't have a domestic arm to our business anymore. We offer expert recommendations to improve energy ratings, again, based on government calculations, based on the definitive approach for that particular building. So if they've got an improvement rate, so they have a rating of A to G, if it's an A, of course, there'll be less recommendations. And as we go down the Bs and Cs, the Ds, etc., there'll be more improvement solutions on there. Just as a side note, because it's not on the screen, the MEES regulations, which this is within, is minimum energy efficiency standards. And at the moment, your clients, commercial clients, need to make sure they've got a valid EPC that's an E rated or above as a minimum. That's only commercial. They've kind of loosened the grip on the domestic market for EPCs. And once again, similar to the other compliances, will ensure full compliance. So for your clients, we would send over a draft that you can also see with their acknowledgement, and they just need to acknowledge the fact that they're happy with the drafting, and then of course we can lodge. And again, with all compliances, it will be in the public domain. So we ensure full compliance in EPC regulations, and we make the EPC process very, very simple and hassle-free. So in terms of why partnering with us, again, it's a legal requirement. So businesses must obtain valid EPCs in certain circumstances, as mentioned. Energy efficiency focus. So EPCs highlight in a very stringent, rated scenario what opportunities are out there for them and what they need to do. Straightforward resale. Of course, we'll cover this much further in more webinars. And again, you can go onto our website. There's blogs about EPCs and even an EPC page. And easy to get recurring business. Once someone sees that where EPC assessors, and we've got our Sterling accreditation and Elmhurst accreditation numbers in the public domain, and they're happy with the work that we've done, and we keep them sticky with us. And again, we'd want your clients to do that. They tend to use us for EPCs for more of their portfolio, or indeed any change they make to their current sites. And again, comprehensive partner support. If you need in-depth help, we can help. If the client just wants an EPC and run off and tell someone they've got an A rating, so be it. We can do that as well. All right. Display energy certificates are slightly different. Ultimately, they need to be displayed by law in public buildings, libraries, police stations, medical centres, hospitals, and the big one is schools. All schools need them because it's a public area. So it's a legal requirement for all public buildings over 250 metres squared. There are certain denominations of this which are different for larger buildings where they have to have them done every year, but normally it's every 10. Okay. So in terms of how we can help, we conduct detailed energy usage assessments. So DECs, different to EPCs, are data driven as well. We provide legally required advisory reports similar to EPCs to show them low, medium and high solutions that they require for the building to have a better rating. We manage the entire DEC certification process, and we offer ongoing support for all renewals, which again can be 1 year or 10 years usually, depending on the size of the building. So why partner with Focus Green for display energy certificates? Again, it's a legal requirement. It makes your position as a reseller or an internal account manager a little bit easier because they have to do it. Sustainability compliance will help promote energy awareness to all businesses, or public sector rather, to be more conscious of their energy use and efficiency improvements. Effortless resale, and we manage the entire process to ease your partners in, to introduce clients and deck services. Annual renewable business, because as mentioned, larger entities, larger buildings will require a deck renewal each year. And of course, as similar to the other compliances, we provide a full training, resources, and expert assistance to help moving forward. Okay. And again, as I say, the approach is that if you need any assistance in reference to more information about what these are, obviously ask at the end, use the chat, do whatever means you can to ask anything else. So why choose Focus Green? As mentioned at the beginning, we've been a partner with Full Power Utilities for a couple of years, and we've proved our expertise in the areas that we're discussing. We're reliable and trustworthy, and we offer exceptional support, whether that's through our own team here or some of our own partners or subcontractors when we get extremely busy. So that's my portion of this over. So I'm going to hand over to Ian Douglas, who will talk about the boiler optimization and its advantages, and obviously helping you as resellers and account managers look at this for your clients. So Ian, do you want to start?
Yeah, thanks, Matt. Hello, everybody. I'm Ian Douglas. I work alongside Matt in installing boiler optimization across a number of scenarios. So we're here today to hopefully give you an introduction and understanding of what is the OptiBurner. So this is a piece of technology that can fit to a number of different scenarios, such as boilers and chilled water. So we help businesses to reduce fuel costs and carbon emissions with innovation boiler optimization technology, making the energy efficiency simple and effective. So we work with proven data solutions that maximize the boiler efficiency, lower the operating costs, and extend the life of the equipment. So what is an OptiBurner? An OptiBurner is a piece of technology that reduces energy consumption. That may be gas, oil, LPG, or electric. So it retrofits to an existing boiler. We can reduce the fuel and the operating costs, lower the emissions, and extend the lifespan of the equipment. So how it works, it's dynamic. It adjusts itself. It's microprocessor controlled, so it is intelligent. It monitors temperatures every 4 seconds. It calibrates itself twice a day, and it responds automatically to demands of a building. So the way that the OptiBurner works, to give you an understanding, is we need to extend the cooling period of a boiler. That's important. Currently, a boiler may fire 10 times per hour, for example. What this does is it will reduce the firing times of a boiler to maybe 6 or 7, but it may fire for slightly longer periods, extending the cooling period, but this won't affect the performance of the system. So in this graph here, we can see that how temperature relates to the savings. So a boiler is not always sized for the coldest day. Well, it is sized for the coldest day. It's not always the coldest day. So we can see across the bottom of the graph there, we've got the outside temperature. And if we look to the right-hand side there, we've got 15 degrees. So at 15 degrees, our expected energy savings may be 25% on the left-hand side. That will reduce as temperature reduces. So down to 0, we may be looking at 8.5%, and temperatures fluctuate. So we can be anywhere realistically between 8.5% and up to 40%. So in this slide, we've got typical examples of savings. So we could be looking at 30% fuel savings with a 0 to 18-month payback. We've seen it as low as 1 month in certain scenarios where they've got very high consumption. So there's been in excess of 10,000 installations so far. Okay, how it's proven. The Optiburner, it's been tested by BRE. BRE is the highest certified performance certificate that can be given out. So this has under lab test conditions, this has got proven savings. Automated reports can then be downloaded. So yeah, that's fine, Matt. You can move on. Okay, and where is the Octoburn and where can it be fit? We can fit in many different scenarios. So we can look at standard heating boilers in the commercial industry. So it can be from care homes, offices, factories, schools, hotels, hospitals. So that's for general heating. We can look at steam boilers where we've got production, space heating where we may have warehousing or factories, the high level heaters that are fan driven. We can reduce hot water consumption so they can fit to calorifiers and water heaters, chilled water and air conditioning. So Newcastle United, they've had quite a few installed. They made a good decision to install them, and they made a saving of 16%. So the come out again, we've got a care home scenario here. They've managed 8.9% savings over a 3-week period. Ramada Hotel, their payback period worked out at 3 months. And Whitehall School, well, they've made a saving of 15.3%. And David Lloyd, 12 months, with a total saving of £300,000 a year. So these are typical examples of where they may be installed: hotels, pubs, schools, universities, libraries, airports. Anything's viable, really. So the OptiBurner, it works. We may have a building where it may have a BMS system or simple controls. It is compatible with them. So it will work alongside them with little integration. So it will enhance the performance of the system. Okay, for us to get an understanding, we would carry out the calculations for you to work out what the payback period would look like. And to do that, we'd need an understanding of what plant and equipment they may have there already. So it's purely a matter of taking down details or taking a photo of a data plate of a boiler. And from that, we should be able to carry out the savings report. So maintenance is maintained once a year on a physical inspection. And this is a typical data gathering sheet we may use to gather the details of existing equipment. And that's my explanation complete. I'm now going to pass over to Alex.
Ian, sorry, can I just interrupt? I had one question come in. Are
Yeah.
these compatible with air source heat pumps?
We're under test with that at the moment. So it may well turn out, the feeling is that yes, it will be, but it is under test.
Okay, brilliant. Thank you.
Okay.
Lovely, thanks.
Hi, folks. Can you hear me okay?
Yeah, perfectly fine.
Good. So I'm going to turn the volume up. Excuse the background noise. I'm at a conference, so I apologize beforehand. So I've been involved with the sort of PV renewables business for about 10 years. I'm ex-EDF. I worked in their Blue Lab division and obviously got quite heavily exposed to looking at renewables and how they ultimately can benefit business from small businesses right the way up to multinationals. So there's some quite useful statistics here, which I just want to hopefully it just proves the point that actually PV has a great place within business and the role it can play. So I'm gonna basically give you some statistics. I think Matt, it might be the next slide actually. So often I get questioned by businesses who say, well, I'm not going to invest in solar PV in it at the moment because for the simple reason there's no feed-in tariff, there's no subsidies left. And I go, actually, you're completely missing the point. The point is that if you ultimately want to get yourself off grid, you do need to think about considering generation on site. And that's one of the most fundamental benefits. In terms of solar power, I mean, what I think is amazing is some of these statistics and numbers here. So in a 90-minute period, the sun provides enough power to power the whole planet, as all of us, as of today's date, for a whole year. That's how much potential solar has. And I think the third point actually puts things into context. So globally, as all nations combined, 8.4 billion people worldwide, total consumption or total need for a particular time is 23.9 terawatt hours, 1,000 terawatt hours a year. So, you know, you can see the amount of potential that solar has on a global scale. And this is a global problem. Climate change is a global problem. And we have the technology and the expertise now to address net zero. So, you know, it's a great context here, which hopefully puts everything into perspective in terms of the potential that solar PV has. Another number which you might not be familiar with, if you combine all the commercial buildings in the UK, we have in excess of 24,000 acres of roof space, of which we've only actually installed solar on 5%. So this is why I think commercial property has a great place to address solar. These are some graphs here which I think make quite interesting reading. So this was taken in 1995, and this is the total consumption globally for power, electricity in particular. And you can see the different types of generation format there. So you can see a lot of it back then was generated by coal, of which unfortunately still a lot of it is today. But you can also see the gas contribution, the oil contribution, the nuclear contribution, and as you're starting to see some solar, wind, and hydropower contribution there. But in total, in terms of total generation capacity, 12,000 terawatt hours was needed in 1995. Let that sink in a bit. And if we go on to the next slide, Matt. And this is essentially today. Global demand has now peaked at over 26,000 terawatt hours per annum. And you can start to see the contribution that nuclear is making, obviously the nuclear build, hydropower, HEB, hydroelectric power, wind, solar, bioenergy, and other renewables. So you can start to see that that contribution towards the total generation requirement for global power is starting to take effect. We're nowhere near where we need to be, but it just gives you the context. And also the more important thing is ultimately the demand for electricity is just going to keep increasing. Next power, Matt, please. Next power. Okay. Yeah, so I mean, so the fundamentals behind why we should generate solar or generate on site is it achieves and helps to contribute towards addressing a number of government initiatives. The government's obviously places on a net zero pathway, and there are some quite ambitious net zero sort of decarbonisation plans to put in place, and solar is a fundamental part of that. Can we have next slide, please, Matt? So why look at the benefits? I mean, there are four key things really. One, it helps to improve your energy efficiency and your sufficiency. Two, it generates independence. Everybody wants to look at being independent or self-sufficient from the grid, and there's a number of reasons which I'll show in a minute why that should be. We're utilizing the space. We've got a huge amount of commercial roof space that hasn't even had PV or any other generation installed. So it addresses a fundamental reality that we need to generate more. And of course, what it does do is it contributes towards addressing CSR, ESG, and a number of other initiatives, including SECRA and ESOS. The other two components, in terms of economic benefits now, solar PV is becoming more and more efficient. When I started to look at solar PV, we looked at panels that had a total generation capacity of about 250 watts per panel. And now we're looking at almost 500 watts per panel, and that is on the same surface area as previously. So as the panels are improving and the inverters are improving the whole time. So as a result of that, that's helping, but also economically, the cost of these products, solar panels in particular, have reduced significantly in the last 18 months. So it's becoming more cost effective. And also you can start to look at market demand. So as more and more people want to buy solar, of course, that reduces the cost of manufacturing, cost of production. So you start to see the equilibrium between the two. 18 months ago, we're looking at typical paybacks of between 4 and 5 years. Now it's similar for the simple reason the cost of your actual materials are reducing. This is a slide here which shows the UK Warehousing Association. So you can start to see, going back to my statistic there, if you look at all the sort of trapezoid steel distribution centres, logistics centres, manufacturing plants that have got a typical steel trapezoid roof, you're looking at 18,500 acres of potential area to put PV on. They've obviously ensured that their members are now realising that solar is a key contributor towards reducing their impact. And the actual saving, potentially, if they look at solar, is over £3 billion a year if they get focused and pushed behind it. So obviously there is a big initiative now for the Warehousing Association to look at generation on site. Next slide, please, Matt. So going back to the legislation here, as Matt alluded to, you've got investor requirements actually looking at businesses going, what are you doing about reducing consumption? So we have a number of ESG commitments. Solar helps address ESG. It also helps on a more sort of micro level, the MEES legislation as well, and also your ESOS and potentially your SECRA. So it ticks all the boxes on the legislation part. Going back to the EPC rating that Matt was referring to before, it also helps us reduce the EPC rating for building if you install solar PV. You also have the long-term economic and short-term economic benefits in terms of running your business, because it helps you reduce your grid reliance and helps you reduce your energy consumption from the grid. It also helps to reduce your building obsolescence. So there are a lot of, for example, I've been talking to a number of property funds that have a large commercial property portfolio. Now, 30% portfolios have buildings in their portfolio which are redundant for the simple reason they will not be lettable in the future because they do not address or have a high enough EPC rating. So solar is one way of helping to reduce that potential risk with anybody within the commercial property valuation area. Going to valuation, there's now evidence that's quite clear, actually. There was a report that was published, I think, last year from JLL that says quite clearly the indication is showing that if you do invest properly in solar, rooftop solar, or even a carport solar, it will actually improve the valuation of your building. So there's lots of reasons why generation on site should be a fundamental part of a business plan. Again, I don't want to repeat myself here. In terms of types of solar, you've obviously got rooftop solar, you've got ground mount solar, and if you haven't got enough ground or haven't got enough rooftop, you can obviously consider carport solar, which actually is becoming more and more popular because you can then integrate that with EV charge points. The other thing you can do is that if you're a large commercial property owner, and I'm starting to see this more and more now, is that if you go beyond the typical 10% of building regs of putting solar on the roof, and actually put solar on the whole roof, what you can then do is you can then export that solar to your tenant, who will buy obviously anything between 30 and 70%, depending on what their usage. And if you happen to have any spare export capacity, you can then align that and send that back to the grid and get paid for it under a typical power purchase agreement, which allows you to get paid for every kilowatt hour that you are exporting back to the grid. So it not only does it help increase the potential yield of the building, you've got a tenant that's happy because they've got a fixed price energy tariff for the next 5-10 years, depending on how long the tenancy agreement is for. And also you're increasing the valuation of the building, and you have another revenue stream. In terms of the process, it's quite simple. I mean, obviously what we do is we do a site survey. We then obviously go back and look at the potential system design, i.e. how much potential solar we can put on the roof. We do need the half-hourly data to be able to model that properly for you. We'll then look at grid submission. So we need to understand how much the grid will allow us to have at that point. They'll either say, yes, you can have 250 kilowatts, or no, you can't, but we'll have to put export limitation in there. If it's over a certain size, we'll have to just say it works. And that's when I say over a certain size, that means more than a megawatt of power generated on site. There's obviously the planning permission, which will be permitted development rights for a building in particular. We'll obviously look at that. The installation, the commissioning, and then the export meeting MOPS and PPA agreements that might be required for the tenant, or obviously the export back to the grid. This process typically takes about a month. I won't dwell too much because I know my time's ticking away on here, but I mean, in terms of a quick overview on the PPA market, you can start to see what drives PPAs. PPAs are driven by the wholesale markets. Now, here's a snapshot of what the non-commodity and the commodity segment of your typical bill would be in 2009. So you could start to see that in 2009, the majority of your cost was a wholesale and the actual smaller non-commodity costs. So that wasn't a particularly big area in 2009. Go forward to today, we're now seeing non-commodity costs, which is your transmission, your distribution, your contracts for difference, your feed-in tariffs, and all the other government obligations there. Now that's going to represent in excess of 63, 64%. And then if you go forward, that part of the total cost is only going to increase as we go through electrification. So that goes back to my point before, is you've got to start generating on site, and the less you use or pull from the grid, the better for the long-term benefit of your business. So that's next slide. I won't dwell too much. I think I've explained to you what non-commodity costs are, but the point I'm trying to highlight here is that they're out of control. I mean, the only way of de-risking it is to generate on site. Next, please, Matt. So what is a PPA? Very quickly, it's what we call a power purchase agreement, and it's a simple agreement that allows the generator to sell their power back to the grid through either an off-taker, through a private wire, or straight to the grid. And it's an agreement that says that we'll pay you a guaranteed price for a fixed term for the duration of the contract. It might be 1, 2, or 3 years. That's it. It's simply a contract to sell your energy to a off-taker or a supplier. That's all it is. So that's an illustration of what it actually looks like. You've got the generators on the left-hand side. It might be rooftop solar, it might be wind turbine, it doesn't really matter. You've got your agreement in the middle, and then you've got your customers, which tend to be suppliers, off-takers, or businesses directly via a private wire. Next. This is just a quick it's an indicative forward curve of where we think power purchase prices are going to be. Obviously, this is completely open to interpretation. Power purchase prices tend to be linked to the price of wholesale costs for generation. Don't ask me why, but that's the rules at the moment. The European Union is looking at decoupling that, which I think it should happen. But you can start to see that they are starting to soften in terms of export prices. And obviously, the reason really is driving this is because as more and more generation comes onto the market, that generates a surplus, and obviously the price will be reflected in that surplus. But we are looking quite far in advance here, but it just gives you an indication of where we are. We're currently at about 8 pence a kilowatt hour export at the moment. There's lots of conjecture about arguments in 3 years' time that it might be 4.5p, but I mean, I'm not convinced it's going to get there, but it's an indication. Next, please, Matt. And I'm going to emphasize why there's all sorts of reasons why we should look at generation on site. It's good practice. I mean, there's some key points there. I'd worked with a lot of installers and potential consultants that help businesses. 9 out of 10 when solar is installed or wind is installed on site, everyone often forgets about the export meter and the MOP agreements required for export. We do all that at Focus Green. We'll organise the export meter. We'll organise the MOP agreement for export. And it's just good housekeeping if you are consulting or you are an installer by offering this type of service. Here's a quick example of some of the off-takers that will actually purchase your power. They tend to be smaller. In terms of tendering process, all I really need, it's quite simple, is a site address, the system size, and that's the generation size of how much the actual system is able to generate, the trading name of the business, obviously the location, the postcode, the type of generation, solar, wind, or hydro. If the site's export limited, we need to know that, and whether or not there's a half-hourly meter installed on site for the supply, because that means we can reconfigure the meter and put in place the export. And that's it from me. I'm sorry, I've gone over my time allocation, but hopefully that's given you flavour.
Thanks, Alex.
Thanks all, guys. There's a lot of information there.
Yeah, sorry.
No, it's all good. And obviously, I just want to reiterate that these slides will be distributed to everyone as well. So, yeah, look, Matt, is it okay just to take your screen off so we can see in the room? So I'm just thinking if anyone's got any Q&As, I've seen the odd hand, I think, coming up. If you have got a question, then please raise your hand. There should be a little button to raise a hand or unmute Don't all speak at once because that'll be chaos. But if you have got any things that you want to bring to the table now, then fantastic. We've got a bit of time left. Does anyone want to kick off with a few questions? Oh, we've got one in the right-hand side. So Paul Hughes.
I'm on the left. I'm on the right.
You're on my left.
I was busy scribbling down something else, and in relation to the solar, 24,000 was mentioned at 5%. What was the 24,000, please? Can you just remind me? Was it acres?
24,500 acres of commercial rooftop space available for solar. Yeah,
that's lovely. Sorry, I missed that bit off. Thanks very much. That's my question. Thank you.
Alan.
Yeah, thanks, Jeff. Good morning, everybody. Oh, excuse me. You mentioned very early on in the presentation that some of this stuff is a legal requirement already, and it has to be filed along with a tax return. Are we potentially going to be chasing business that's already being done in terms of people are already engaged with someone or actively doing it? Or is this stuff that is only being done when people are aware of it and they're not complying with the law through ignorance, maybe?
Yeah, I mean, the chances are that they've already done it.
Okay.
So for things like ESOS and SECR, if for ESOS especially, if they haven't got someone that they've instructed, then they're going to have to do it quite quickly for ESOS 3, because essentially the deadline date is the end of this month. But then for SECR, it's each year, so they may not have hit those targets yet. So there's some companies that are very much just under that criteria, where suddenly they'll jump into it for that financial year, and they wouldn't have instructed anyone. Normally, it's their accountants that would bring them up to speed with it. But I think for you guys, it'd be good to sort of have that discussion with those clients to say, "Oh, look, have you simply just ask, have you had your ESOS done? Have you done your SECR, etc." And they may turn around and say, "Well, look, we did have an SECR done, but we don't like the company that we've done it with, or they made a mistake, or this, that, and anything in that arena, you can still sort of plug them for that info. But moving forward, certainly just make sure that your clients, for those two larger compliances that they've done. For EPCs and decks, it just depends on the circumstances there and then, realistically.
Cheers, thanks. My first thought was actually accountants would be a wonderful source and referral business for this, but I know how hard it is quite often to actually get accountants to do anything but accounts.
Yeah, definitely. So they would know, unless they've just not any accountant that's worth their call would know the SECR is there for accounting purposes. But certainly ask your clients, just if you know that they're big enough and they hit those criterias or targets rather, then just simply ask the question and see if they've got something in motion. If not, then we're here to help.
Brilliant, thank you.
No worries.
Jackie Wright.
Thanks very much. Hi, Matt. I'm based
Jackie.
near Portsmouth, as you know, and I'm just wondering, in terms of EPCs, how you source local EPC services or people who do it.
So what, from a client's point of view, how they would look for an EPC
assessor? No, from my point of view. So if I went into a company and they wanted an EPC, have you got people locally that are going to do this, or are you bringing people in, or how does that work?
Well, we've got assessors that work with us, whether they're employed by us or subcontracted. For EPCs, we can send out a data collector, and then the lead assessor, EPC assessor, no matter where they are, can compile via the SBEM calcs, the EPC that's drafted and lodged. So yes, we do. We cover the whole of the UK. We did some up in Scotland where the EPC, they've got section 26 or something that's different to the compliance in this country. So yeah, we can do it. If it's down in Portsmouth, we can cover it. Anywhere in England, we can cover. It's not a problem at all.
Okay, and supplementary to that, do you call things like HMOs, service accommodation, commercial? So are you doing those smaller ones?
Yes, to a degree. So
you've just put the question that I was going to ask, Jackie, actually. But yeah, go for it, Matt.
At least on the same wavelength.
Yeah.
So yes. So HMOs, housing multiple occupancy, can be classed in theory as a commercial EPC, depending on the setting that they're in. But again, I won't go over that. So the answer to that is yes, we would cover them.
Thanks.
Single domestic entities, we just don't do anymore. But multiple EPCs for that type of standard with the SAP calculations can be done. So that's fine.
Okay, lovely. Thank you. Peter, you had your hand up, I think.
Hello, yes, did it the
Hello.
old-fashioned way.
That's right.
I'm working with quite a large client where I live in Bournemouth. It's a big university, and I've been working with them for a while and been doing some energy conservation projects, which are now at the pilot stage. They have a lot of pain with their utilities. They've told me in no uncertain terms they're paying in excess of 3 million a year. Student numbers are down, tuition fees are not going up, and their utility spend is one of their biggest pain points. I've got a good working relationship with their energy managers, their facilities people, and I would like to expand on that relationship. And what I've heard here today through Focus Green is quite exciting in terms of understanding their pain points, is looking really for somebody or a business that could be a one-stop shop to do all of this. So all the little criteria that you mentioned for ESOS, EPCs, they've got 18 massive buildings. I want to introduce this gradually. Now I want to pitch it kind of as I've heard you explain it, as kind of a one-stop shop, really. All of these pain points could be managed centrally by one entity, being yourselves. Would that be a fair way to potentially try and introduce you or market you? Or would you suggest a softer approach, maybe leaning on one of the points and expanding inwards?
Yeah, I mean, it's valid points, and it's good to have a client that you can reach out to us about with such magnitude. So there are areas that we'd need to look at first. So no matter what they think they need, whether it's a net zero carbon program, an ESOS, this, that, and the other, we check all of their compliances to begin with, just to make sure they're set and ready. Because we do have circumstances similar to this where we do everything, but we need the starting process is different. They may have done something that they didn't think they'd already done. So yeah, look, I think to keep things simple with that, of course we can help. The biggest things with universities and schools as well is that, as you've mentioned, they're spending, what did you say, 3 million a year on their energy?
Yeah, in excess of, yeah.
So we want to be looking at bringing that down, especially if student numbers are down, so they can then equate that to more money per pupil. And this is a really good way of doing it. So yeah, let's keep that. What we'll do is, obviously with Jeff and Full Power U team's acknowledgement, is the fact that what we'd normally do is accept an email with an email to them as well to say, look, we've had the chat during the presentation. Can we have a Teams call, for instance, or introduce how you feel the client would be most comfortable, whether it's via email or a phone call or a Teams invite. And what you and I can do, Peter, is we can assess where that client is in reference to their mindset, the buildings they've got, their whole sort of sustainability and an energy efficiency mindset, and then jump into where the compliances fit with them. So yeah, keep an open mind on that, but it's certainly 100% we can help, definitely.
Just on that, sorry, no, Peter, I know you're going to Bournemouth, aren't you? The seminar event.
I will see you there, Jeff.
Yeah, so Matt and team will be there as well. So again, a good opportunity to have a chat in a couple of weeks' time on that. I'm just conscious of time. 5 minutes. Catherine, you got your hand up there. I don't know if you can unmute yourself.
Come on. Hello.
Hello.
Sorry, for some reason my phone is stuck in safe driving mode, which is why you haven't seen me.
Okay.
I'm not actually driving. I'm
Very
sitting
good.
I was just taking some notes and I missed a point which I thought was possibly quite important, which was on the payback period for solar PVs. So we had some nice, interesting figures about how the wattage has gone from 250 to 500 watts per panel, because and inverters have improved. Then there was the costs have dropped over the last 18 months. Payback was 4 to 5 years, but now it's much less. Was there actually a number that is payback period time for?
No, it's Yeah, so let me. There are a number of variables. So what I do a lot of financial modeling for solar,
Yep.
and I often get clients who come forward to me and saying, "Look, I've had 3 quotes, but I can't make head or tail of them because they all
Right.
have different ROIs." So what
Yep.
we tend to do is we'll model it in effectively a glorified spreadsheet, and there are four variables that will impact the ROI any solar
Right.
PV, actually any
Yeah.
renewable project. And they are your support your tariff, like what you're currently paying from the grid. First
Yeah.
one, that's a fundamental one. The second one is your export spill price. So
Yeah.
how much you'll actually get paid for your spill, because there will be spill. There's no doubt about it.
Yeah,
9 times out of 10, there's always some spill and everybody ignores it.
Yep.
The third point is whether or not you've registered for REGOs, because if you're new, the installation size can be registered for REGOs, which is worth about £5 per megawatt hour, or another half a p on top of the kilowatt for your export. And I think
Sorry,
one of the most
register
fundamental.
for, say that again. I'm can't hear. Register for egos. Sorry, what?
No, REGOs.
Regos. Okay.
REGOs.
Yep.
Yeah. So any generator
Yep.
any generator, solar, wind,
Yep.
hydroelectric, can register for Ofgem to collect REGOs, which are
Right.
payable every year.
Right.
And they're based on the system size, or the amount of the capacity
Yep.
of the system itself, and they are based on the volume of that system.
Okay.
So that's the third one. And the fourth one really is your rate of inflation. So what rate of inflation, energy inflation, has the installer applied to the modelling of the PV proposal?
Okay, fine.
And those four things are fundamental in working out what your actual ROI is going to be.
Yeah. Okay. But you do that, which is great. Now I understand
Yeah.
monthly, I understand modeling a lot. I used to sell modeling products, so it makes sense that it's not an obvious one. But whatever you're saying,
No.
they did say the cost used to be 4 to 5 years. But if you look at all of those four in a model, people will really understand. I think that will make you sound very professional. The fact that you're considering perhaps if other people don't, the export spill or energy inflation, because you can model.
Well, yeah. I mean, I work with some fantastic installers, but the conflict for the client is ultimately all installers want to do is put panels on the roof. They don't really care. They don't care about the export. They don't care about export.
No.
They don't care about the after service really, because they're there to sell the product.
But this helps you sell to an accounts team in a way. If you're I used to sell products to finance directors.
Yes.
People
No, it does.
Interesting
Absolutely.
in this mathematics, and you suddenly
Yeah.
jump a point then for having
Yep.
thought of all of those. Is that right?
Absolutely, and every site's different, so I can't
Yep.
tell you that,
Yeah.
typically a site will give you a 4, 5, or 6 year payback, because it's just not true. Every site's different, and that's
Yep.
based on the amount of energy used from the
Yep.
grid, and
Yep.
importantly, the amount the system is, where it's located in the country, whether or not it's a south-facing roof or a west-facing.
Yep.
There are so many variables that impact the ROI on any system. Doesn't matter if it's wind or
Yep.
solar, and therefore it's really important that the modeling's done on site-specific basis.
Yeah. Perfect. All right. Thanks. That really answered my question. Thank you.
Okay, thank you, everyone. I think it's 12 o'clock, so I'm sure there are many more questions to be answered. But if you have got any questions, then feel free to email it across to your program manager, myself or Joanne, or obviously this information will be sent out afterwards as well, and I will connect Matt's contact details with that as well. Just to finally say that Matt and team will be at our roundtable events, which are in Bournemouth on the 27th of this month and in Boreham Wood on the 13th of March. And if anyone hasn't booked and they're around that area, then we'd recommend you come along, because there's going to be a lot going on those afternoons and early evening sessions, and you even get a free drink from Full Power, even better. But the links are actually in the chat at the top of the chat box if you need to kind of book those. But yeah, really good. Thank you for your time today.
Sorry, Phil. Just one last comment. So any additional information, go on to focusgreen.co.uk, because everything's on there. Blogs, resources about ESOS, EPCs, all of the recommended compliances for certain people. And then the Optiburner website is optiburner.com. Now, what you can do is send your clients to it, because as Sally Cranham's just mentioned, it's a fantastic piece of kit. We're massive promoters of it, because it's saving our clients from independent energy assessments between those figures that Ian went through, 15 to 30%, and then not having to scrape around for funds, because they're they're as cheap as £2,800, £3,200 per unit. So actually the payback's excellent. So definitely everyone have a look at the optoburner.com website and direct your clients to it, or even fill in the rudimentary calculator to work out how many trees they can save by putting in what their carbon ratios are, and also what kilowatt and pence per kilowatt they can save. So yeah, and if there's any additional marketing stuff that you guys need, let us know, because we can do some white labeling stuff for your resellers and for you at Full Power also. All right.
Okay, lovely. All right.
Can I just ask? Can I ask a quick question with that Optimite thingy? Does it matter how old the boiler is? I mean, what sort of kind of age can it fit on?
No, it can, as old as possible. So the more inefficient, the better savings we'll get from it.
Okay, great, thanks.
Just remember though, it's really 40 kilowatt boilers or above. So they're not really for domestic boilers. It's all commercial boilers. And obviously facilities that are open 24 hours, hospices, so hospitals, care homes, nursing homes, that type of, and they're using gas or kerosene, are big winners in reference to that. If everyone in the country took on that mindset of saving 10 to 15 or 20% on the gas or kerosene, would be in a great position in the country, not the bigger entities looking at saving 100% by degassing, because it's just too expensive. So this is an alternative product that a lot of the SMEs, a lot of the bigger companies are looking at and having installed, as you've seen from the slides.
Okay, brilliant. Right, ladies and gents, thanks for your time. So we've recorded this. We'll be sending out a load of information as well off the back of this. Yeah, we'll leave it there for today. And thanks, Matt, and the other guys on the call as well. Appreciate your time today.
Fantastic. Cheers, everyone. Take care. Cheers,
Thank
mate.
you. Thanks a lot.
Okay.
Thanks, Jeff.
See ya.